Kids love pull toys. I watched my son and later my grandchildren pull them across the floor and down the hall, having great fun the entire time. Kids also love animals, so a pull toy animal will surely be a hit. These don't take much wood to make. You probably have more than enough in your scrap pile. You'll also need some wheels and some string or rope. The patterns are easy enough for even a beginner to cut on the scroll saw, making this a quick weekend project. And if you're not a DIY person, I'll leave a link to my website where you can purchase one from me. As you know, I'm always looking for new patterns. I found this one on Steve Good's site. I didn't put a date on it, but it's for pull toys. I've never made a pull toy before that I can remember. And so these won't be difficult, and I'm going to make this my next project. I already cut out the bases, and I've got the patterns. There's a dog, and there's a horse, and I got a piece of wood that both of those are going to fit on. So I'll get the patterns attached, drill the holes for the eyes, drill hole, pilot hole for these spaces there, and we'll get started. I'm going to cut the horse first, and I'll start with the inside cut. It's my habit to cut the inside cuts first because sometimes the interior cuts remove a lot of material and weaken the workpiece's structure. Plus, this gets the most demanding cuts done first. Making the outside cut last leaves a more extensive, easier to hold board during the process. I cut from the pilot hole to the nearest corner, then backed the blade to the pilot hole, pivoted the workpiece 180 degrees, and then moved the blade back to where it stopped cutting. From there, I used a combination of the curve the blade had just created, plus the waist area, to turn the board into the next direction I wanted to cut. The first corner is always the most difficult to cut because you must turn the workpiece through such a wide angle. I cut along the bottom line of the waist piece until I reach the next corner. Here, I will make what I call a classic 90-degree interior corner. I cut until I reached the point of the angle, and then I eased back pressure on the scroll saw blade just enough so that it was no longer cutting. I slowly pivoted the wood 90 degrees until it was facing in the new direction I wanted to cut, and then I started pushing back into the blade. I believe what happens when you do this is that the blade can move up and down freely in the curve it just created, and, at the same time, the side of the blade facing inward removes a little bit of material from the waist area while the board is turned. The two corners at the top of this interior cut are rounded rather than sharp angled cuts, so even a beginner should have no problem with them. When I returned to the starting place, I pushed the waist piece through the bottom. This gave me lots of room to move the blade into space to clean up that first corner where the cut was less than perfect. Now I can move on to the outside cut. You'll notice I drilled the 5/16 hole for the horse's eyes. This is a step I like to take before cutting because I've found that if you wait until last, the drill bit sometimes causes the material next to the hole to split if it's near an edge. Drilling first avoids that problem. I didn't mention it before, but I'm using a number 9 Pegasus modified geometry blade for this project. The animals are cut from 3/4 red oak, and considering the wood's thickness and hardness, plus the pattern's simple cuts, the number 9 blade was my choice. If you want more information on choosing the correct size blade for any scroll saw project, a link to my video on the subject is on the screen and in the description. The horse, and the other animals in the set, attaches to the stand using a slot and tab construction. For that connection to be tight and to look good, the tab on the bottom of the animal has to be cut carefully and accurately. Perfect 90-degree corners where the tab protrudes from the bottom of the animal are needed for the connection to work as designed. I cut from the bottom up to the point of the intersection with the horizontal line at the bottom of the horse. Rather than make a 90-degree turn at that point, I backed the blade out of the cut. Next, I cut the horizontal line from the edge until the blade met the vertical cut. This caused the waist piece to fall away, and I had a perfect corner. I handled the other side in the same manner. Cutting this way ensured there would not even be the slightest rounding on these corners, which would disturb the fit of the tab into the slot. That was the only interior cut for this item, so I moved on to the exterior cut. Most of this was easy to follow curves, except for one right angle near the bottom of the horse's front and rear legs. In those areas, I needed to cut right-angled corners. These need to be aesthetically pleasing, but this shape isn't critical because they're not part of any joinery. To make these corners, I cut to the point of the angle where a direction change was needed. I stopped cutting at the corner point and then backed off pressure on the blade just enough so it was no longer cutting.
Then I pivoted the workpiece 90 degrees to the new direction I wanted to cut and pushed the wood into the blade again. Outside corners like this are a good place to learn how to make right-angled cuts. If the cut here turns out to be slightly curved rather than having a sharp point, it will still look good and you can leave it as it is. Or you can cut in from the two outside edges to sharpen the intersection. The choice is yours. Cutting the dog was a rerun of cutting the horse, so I won't show that. The bases for the animals are rectangles with a slot cut from the middle, so there was no need to make a copy of the pattern to attach to the wood. I used the outside dimensions to cut 2 blocks of 3/4 oak on the table saw, and then I transferred the lines for the cutout in the middle with a ruler and pencil. I made a pilot hole with the drill press, then I threaded the scroll saw blade through it. The slot needs to be just enough larger than the tab for the tab to fit into it snugly. The tab is exactly 3/4 wide, and I know this for sure because I planed the stock for the animals down to 0.75 inches on my thickness planer, measured with a caliper, not a ruler or tape measure. I measured the tab's length to determine the slot's length. I made my cuts right on the lines to ensure a good fit. I can always make it larger if it's too tight, but if it's too loose, the tab may wiggle or slide around in the slot. This joint will be glued, but I don't want to rely on the glue strength alone. I gave the pull toys a couple of coats of spray polyurethane finish, added a string to pull them, and they're ready to go. As soon as I decide exactly what to use, I'll add something at the end of the string for the child to hold onto while pulling the toy. Kids love any toy on wheels, and I've watched my grandchildren and other young children pull toys like this up and down the hallway while having a great time doing it. Perhaps you have a child or grandchild who'd love to have one, and it's an easy weekend project. As always, I welcome your comments and respond to every one because they're important to me in growing this channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and hitting the notification bell ensures you won't miss the next video in the series. But you don't have to wait a week for that to happen. There are 2 suggestions for videos to watch next on the screen right now.